Every now and then we have one of these big weeks in the market where the Fed meeting coincides with major earnings. So this week, and particularly today, Wednesday, July 29th, we have the Fed decision and we have earnings from Meta and Microsoft, two of the major hyperscalers exposed to AI. So let's look at the Fed meeting first. So today we have a lot of unsurety where the Fed decision is concerned. About one third of the market is pricing in a hike. That is extraordinarily high at a time where, most of the people are not thinking that the Fed will move. So, what are we thinking about this? Personally, I don't think the Fed will hike. It's too early for them to make such a decision. Yes, oil prices are going up. However, the market is going down, and labor markets are still stable. So, the Fed can afford to wait here for a little bit. The other issue is the Fed can think about being hawkish, so taking a very hard line on inflation through their speeches instead of actually hiking. And that will sort of have the same effect. And we're already seeing that because bond yields have started to go up and is sort of doing the Fed's work for them. Now, very quickly, when it comes to the earnings, now I'm not going to go into the numbers. However, what I will say is the market got a little bit of a scare last week when Google reported, right? And Google increased their capex spend. And the market didn't take that very well, again, because, there are capacity issues and whether the market can absorb so much capex. The other issue is Meta announced earlier this month that they are going to rent some of their compute powers. Now, what happens when they do that? That means that they may have extra capacity that they don't need. So it raises the question, what about the other hyperscalers? Do they also have too much capacity? Have we been overestimating what's happening in the market? So it's important to have a look at what happens to these earnings and how they report. But overall, I think the biggest concern today is whether the capex spend is increased, and whether we get a sense as to whether Meta and Microsoft both have an overcapacity when it comes to data centers and compute.